The European Union is at a crossroads, with member states looking for leadership and cash to bolster economies that have been hard hit by the COVID pandemic and subsequent lockdowns. Leaders are in Brussels for their first face-to-face meeting in months. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel is chairing the summit, and she wants to persuade the bloc's richer nations to allow grants for countries like Italy, Spain and Portugal to help them overcome the worst of the pandemic. But richer members, including Austria and the Netherlands, want to see tightly controlled loans instead. Merkel has admitted that finding a compromise will be difficult.
I have to say that there are still major differences, so I can't predict whether we will come to an agreement this time. It would be desirable, but we have to acknowledge reality. It will take a tremendous willingness to compromise for us to achieve something that's good for Europe and good for the people of Europe in light of this pandemic, and also to find an appropriate response to the economic challenges we face. So I expect very, very difficult negotiations.
DW's Barbara Wesel joins us now from Brussels. Barbara, a clear statement from the Chancellor there and a crucial summit for the EU. Outline for us the competing views on this massive fund that is dividing the United European Union.
Angela Merkel didn't sound overly optimistic, did she, Rebecca? But it is really tough, that much is true, because all the fault lines have now become apparent. There's some countries who say, no, we need more money for agriculture. Other countries, like Poland, for instance, don't want to obey the climate rules and don't want to fulfill the climate goal. Then you have countries like Hungary, who say we want to have nothing to do with ties between the rule of law and money. And then at the heart really is the big culture war between the South and the North. The southern countries say we need help. We need a lot of money to sort of get out of this tremendous economic slump that we have fallen into through the corona crisis. We know Italy, Spain and Portugal were the hardest hit countries in Europe. And so they say we need this money, but we need it as grants. It makes no sense to burden ourselves with further loans. So that is the one side. On the other side, you have the northern countries who say, hey, we don't like this recovery fund because it takes up debt. We don't like the idea of communal debt. Then they say, now, if we have to give loans, we want to control what the South does with the money. And if it is grants, if we just have to give away the money freely, those controls need to be even more stringent. And that is really what the big division here is. And it is a gulf between the two sides at this point in time and will be very difficult to bridge.
Well, that division that you speak of goes so deep that the Italian Prime Minister thinks this summit could decide the future of the EU. Are the stakes really that high?
Stakes are extremely high because what happens if the South really falls off the economic cliff edge? And that is what Angela Merkel, for instance, fears. And that is why she has really shifted her position throughout the last months and said, no, we need to just take money and go into that. And we just have to help them because they can't do it on their own. So that is a big shift. And the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, when he arrived here, he spoke about a historic summit. So the stakes are extremely high. And the problem with this is that at the core of the frugal countries, the northerners, are the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands have a reputation for being somewhat stubborn and also for being quite frugal. They are a bit tight with their money. The question is, however, in this situation, how can you split the European bill for the corona pandemic? And so we come to the point that we have to consider whether splitting the bill, going Dutch, will in the end implode the European Union. In the last days, they have all been beating a path to Mark Rutte's door. First came the Italian Prime Minister, then his Spanish counterpart, and finally, the Portuguese. It was a concerted lobby effort to convince the Dutchman to loosen his purse strings, but so far no luck.
Dat begint wel in onze richting te gaan.
It all begins to move in our direction and it's already looking better. The Netherlands are the 5th largest economy in the European Union, big in trade and exports. A wealthy country where people are mostly happy. But sharing this wealth is not their cup of tea. When going out with friends, they often prefer to go Dutch and split the bill, and that's what they expect from their government too.
Some kind of regulations, because it's a lot of money, and I'm not saying it's my money, but yeah, I think it's necessary to have something. You just can't, if you just give out money, people are just going to spend it like, oh yeah, well we just got the money, so let's just do whatever.
The question whether Europe should throw free money at the economic fires in Italy really moves Dutch people. Even the popular comedian Arjen Lubach picked up on this. I want to extinguish your fire, but I don't want to take over your mortgage.
I think partly some of it has to do with being greedy. I'm sorry to say that about the Dutch, but we have that tendency too. Like the more you have, the more it makes you want to keep it all to yourself.
Socialist politician Lian Plumen, however, thinks the Dutch government is being embarrassingly tight.
Everyone wants to work in their own best interest, and they stand for what's important to the Netherlands. However, the message is not to the others, you are not doing what you should do. The message should be, we are all in solidarity. We need to come out of this crisis together.
That's also what Stefano from Italy hopes for. He enjoys living, partying and working with Dutch people, but for the one little difference.
The relationship that there is between Dutch people and the money is Dutch. They have their own way of dealing with money, and I mean, of course, have been dealing with the practical the daily habits, and yeah, I can see that they are very sharp. I hope that in this case, for the future of our beautiful Europe, is gonna be different.
So, the big question is whether the Dutch are prepared to share the European bill after the corona crisis.
The big question indeed. I'm now joined by Manlio Di Stefano. He's Italy's Under-Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and a member of the governing Five Star Movement. Mr. Di Stefano, why should the Netherlands and other northern European states bail out countries like yours?
First of all, good morning. Well, I would say that the storytelling about Italy is a little bit weird to me. I mean, we are a very solid country in terms of economic fundamentals. And first of all, we are the second biggest manufacturer in Europe after Germany. So we are not at all in the so-called big spenders. So I really appreciated the last interview you had, where the women said that we should talk about solidarity, because it's not just in this moment, we are not just debating about the Italian future, we are debating about the European Union future. So if we agree that the European Union has to survive to this crisis, we have to look at this event of these days, the Council in Europe, and we really have to figure out how we can fix the economic crisis we are all living in. That's fundamental to be understood.
Right, and so you say that this is about the future of Europe. That's something that the Prime Minister of your country has also said, Giuseppe Conte. But he has also said it would be okay for the Commission to make suggestions on how to use the funds. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that we need an unconventional response in this moment. So Mr. Conte said very well, we will face a distress, a social distress for the crisis. So we cannot think to come back, to return to the austerity policies that we have faced after 2008, because they will have dramatic social and political consequences. So what we think is that the recovery fund has to be a big fund. So we really are looking to the European Commission proposal of 750 billion. And we want to be clear about that. It makes no sense to relate them to conditionalities like the European stability mechanism, because it will be inaccessible for most of the countries that need some help in this moment. And again, I'm not talking just about Italy, I'm talking about Spain, I'm talking about Portugal, France, a lot of countries. So I think that we really have to think that in this moment, we have to grant money to the countries that need them and be clear that they are not linked at all to the conditionalities that are already existing in the European Treaty, so the European Stability Mechanism. This has to be clear. And also,
but why? I'd just like to interrupt you there. I really would like to know why you think that is important. Why you think it's okay to accept the money without any conditions?
Simply because what we are asking is that those monies are they have to be linked to the reforms that the Commission is asking. So we are talking about the relaunch of the health system. We are talking about moving forward in the green economy. We are talking about the plan that Ms. von der Leyen has put in place in his mandate. So we are not saying that we want money to do whatever we want, as an interview told just before in your video. We are saying that we want to use that money to recover the economy from the damage that he has had by the coronavirus. I think this is something that we share, all the countries in Europe in this moment. And again, the important part is also the amount of money, not just the existence or not. Because when I listen to European Stability Mechanism talking about 36 billion for Italy, for example, we as a government, we already put 8 billion. So it makes no sense. I mean, it makes no difference if having or not in that case.
All right, Mr. Di Stefano, thank you very much for speaking to Deutsche Welle today.
Thank you so much.